Speier is recognized. You're now recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have two documents I'd like to submit for the record, one from the Postal Service on the reorganization and one from Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington.
Without objection.
Thank you. Mr. DeJoy, thank you so much for being here today. You have answered some questions about your contributions to the President. You also contributed $586,000 to attend a dinner for him in February of this year. Is that correct?
I don't think so, no.
Well, there's records that show you did. Your wife has also been nominated to be the ambassador to Canada. Is that correct?
She is, yes.
All right. Mr. Duncan, wherever you are.
Yes.
Mr. Duncan, you have also been active in President Trump's campaign and as the director of American Crossroads Super PAC. Is that correct?
I am a director of American Crossroads Super PAC, yes.
And you've contributed over $1.9 million to President Trump's campaign.
That's not correct.
Not you personally, but the PAC.
I don't know the answer to
For
that.
the records
Is the
show that.
reason.
So you're both vested in making sure that the president gets reelected. Is that correct?
I'm not here to talk
Absolutely.
about the president's election. I'm here to talk about Postal Service issues.
Okay. Mr. Duncan, how much did the Postal Service pay Russell Reynolds to be the company to look for a replacement?
I don't have that number. I'd be happy to try to provide it for you.
All right. In your own testimony, you said they started with 212, they then vetted 50, and they got down to the first round interviews, and there were 14. But Mr. DeJoy was not one of them. So we paid this company to do a national search for the replacement for the USPS, Postmaster General. He was not in that group. But Mr. Barger, I guess Mr. Barger said, well, we have another candidate. Did you recommend Mr. DeJoy as a candidate?
Let me go back on your premise that he wasn't included. We were still taking recommendations at that point of time before the first interview process had gone.
Mr. Duncan,
So
just
he
answer
was.
the question. Did you recommend Mr. DeJoy as a candidate?
I gave Mr. DeJoy's name as a candidate, as I did with other candidates. I submitted it through the process.
All right, but he was not part of what was provided to you by the search firm. Let's move on. The President has been very critical of Amazon and the contract they have with the Postal Service, Mr. DeJoy. Have you reviewed that contract?
I have not reviewed the contract specifically in any detail now.
Well, but you did offer some testimony, I believe, in the Senate that suggested that you had, in fact, reviewed it and that you thought that the rates were...
The question was about rates, right? There's a contract. Contracts are thick. I'm studying the rate building process of the Postal Service on the NSAs. That's what
So you did look at Amazon's rates?
I did look at Amazon's rates.
All right.
Yes.
On your statement of financial...
As long as hundreds of other
I
rates.
understand.
Okay.
In your statement of financial disclosure, you sold your Amazon stock on June 22nd, I believe, and then you purchased options on Amazon on June 24th. That would suggest to almost anyone that there is a conflict of interest. It doesn't require that you make a decision. It only requires that you participate. Did you check with the Government Office of Ethics to see if that was appropriate?
Before I went in the Postal Service, you file your forms the day you arrive at work. I filed my forms. I was going to a meeting on Amazon. I own stock someplace in a call at Morgan Stanley, and they told me I had to either recuse myself from reviewing a number of contracts or sell the stock. I called our broker to sell the stock. We actually had calls.
Well, Mr. DeJoy, I'm going to have to
But I
move
did
on.
not buy options. I actually bought
It's on your
covered calls
statement.
back. I bought covered calls back and at a loss. That's what I did to get it completely out of stock. I had to unwind covered calls.
You
Put
still
it-
have those calls, do you not?
No,
You
I had
have,
to pay more money for the calls than I sold them for. I think you should get an understanding of what a covered call is before you accuse me of any improprieties.
all right. I think, let me just ask one last question. Have you removed any machines that automate the postmarking process?
I have not removed any machine.
Gentlewoman's time has expired. The gentleman may answer.
I have not, I'll repeat again, for the 100th time, I have not removed any machines.
Well, that's separate from the sorting
Con-
machines.
Congresswoman Miller, you
Any
are now
machine. I'll
recognized.
repeat, I have not removed any machines.
Congresswoman Miller, you are